Hey everybody, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and this is the live stream where you guys get to ask me questions. Q&A. Get in the chat, ask me a question, anything you would like about jobs, careers, interviews, resumes, any of that stuff, and we can certainly go into it. This is a rare weekend edition. I had some time this weekend, so I figured I'd do one of these. Hopefully you like how it's going so far. My collar looks weird. I just see myself now. Anyway, so welcome one and all. Get in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. I see we have a couple of things here from Corin. Corin says, "Hi Bill, interested in understanding more about applicant tracking systems. Any tips for optimizing a resume to make it ATS friendly? If you could also recommend any websites or services that review resumes or cover letter against ATS, that would be greatly appreciated." Okay. Thanks for the question, Corin. That's an intelligent question. Here's my sort of response to that. Okay. If you're applying for a job where they're running your resume through ATS, generally it's either not a good job or it's not a good organization, or you're going in through the wrong channel, okay? ATS, getting around ATS is a never-ending game of cat and mouse. It's like the hacker and security community. As soon as somebody comes out with like a great trick, there's a short amount of time before the ATS systems sort of receive the patch. They learn that trick and then they learn to detect it, and then that trick no longer works. Okay. Now I don't stay on top of that stuff because, quite frankly, that's not a good way to get a job. If you're going in with through an ATS system, that by definition means that there's a high volume of applicants. Okay, so you're going in with like 200 to 500 other applicants or other applications, and I mean, just statistically, if there's 200 other applications, you've got a 0.5% chance of getting that job, okay? So, all things being equal. So the problem is, it's not a good way to get a job. This is the worst area of the posted job market, where, the posted job market, if for those of you guys who don't know, I've said this many times before, and you don't have to take my word for this, you could look this up and do your own research. Of all the jobs that are out there, around 20% of them are actually posted. Okay, so when you go and you look at all the job postings online and you see all these job postings, all of those jobs, that's actually 20% of what's out there. There's the 80% of the other jobs are not discoverable through that method. Okay, they're not posted publicly. Those tend to be where the better jobs are. Okay. So essentially what you've got is 80% of applicants competing for 20% of the jobs, the post jobs. And the fiercest competition is for, high volume jobs where you would need something like applicant tracking software to filter resumes, because there's so many resumes that, a human can't look at all of them. Okay. So either that, or the human could look at all of them, but they're unwilling to look at all of them. And I don't know which one's worse. Okay. In both cases, it's kind of bad. So to try and directly answer your question, back in the day, there would be all kinds of hacks. Like, for example, you could take the entire text of the job posting, okay, with, all the requirements and, all the nice to haves and all of that stuff. You could take the entire body of the text and you could paste it at the end of your resume at font size, 1, like extremely small and colored clear. So it's undetectable when you look at it, but it's actually there. So a machine will detect it. And if they're looking for keywords, usually it's the keywords that they used in the job posting. They're looking for certain things that were listed in the requirements. They will find it on your resume because you have pasted the entire text of the thing. Now, that was a tip from like several years ago. So I'm sure that by now, the way things go, most ATS systems will be smart enough to realize that that's what you've done, and it won't help you. But I don't stay on top of that because it's it's just not a very promising way to get a job. If I were you, I would focus on learning much more forthcoming channels to get a job. I would learn to tap the hidden job network, and you do that through networking, like we've talked about extensively on this channel. And when you do that, you're putting yourself forward for a job that there might be only one or two other applicants that are considered for that applied for it. Okay, so your odds of getting it are like 25% as opposed to, 0.5%. So it's much more promising, and good jobs tend to be filled that way. Now, if all this is new and it sounds very strange and suspicious and too good to be true, don't take my word for it. Go do a basic Google search. Go look it up from a variety of different sources and corroborate this. This is how it works, okay? And some people, if you still don't believe me on this, maybe you just need to spend a few years in the job market before you realize this is actually what's going on, okay? I did a poll on this channel. I do a public opinion poll every day on this YouTube channel where I ask people a multiple choice question and they give me their answer. And a few weeks ago, and I said, the last job that you got, how did you get it? What method did you use to get that job? And you can see, of all the options, one of them was like applying for a posted job on the internet, or some form of networking, like I know someone at the company, or I reached out proactively to the hiring manager who I didn't know before I was even aware that they had a posted job there. All these things, and the results from all you guys show that, overwhelmingly, people got their last job not by applying to a publicly posted job on the internet or anywhere else, but through some form of networking. Okay, either you proactively reach out to the company and target them, or you do it some other way. Like networking, there's a lot of different things under the umbrella of networking. Okay, so that's how I would say that. I mean, there are some other resources out there. They're more tailored to trying to help you get around ATS. I'm just not down with all the latest stuff, and I don't intend to be either. So you can maybe check out some of those if you really want to, but I'd highly recommend that you don't. That you investigate a lot of other things that are much more promising before you go down the journey of trying to outwit an ATS system by tailoring your resume just right. Okay, so hopefully that's somewhat helpful. Okay, this is what you do. I mean, as your career progresses, also presumably you move away from entry level jobs, worker level jobs. Or maybe at the supervisor level or manager level or mid manager level. You sort of climb the ladder to a degree, and as you move up the org chart, the way they fill those jobs increasingly is not through things like ATS, okay? Or through recruiters for that matter. It's more talking to hiring managers, it's more networking. When you get up to the executive level, it's something like 90 or 95% all done through networking. Okay, so if you are also very ambitious and you want to get higher level jobs, that's another incentive for learning networking and learning how you reach out to organizations, learning the protocol of how you communicate, what you say, to whom you say it, okay? Under what circumstances you say it. Learn that stuff. That's very, very useful to your career. And to get a good, high-paying job. And to achieve your potential. A whole bunch of things all at once. Corin is here. So Corin says, merci beaucoup, from Switzerland. Switzerland, capital Bern, right? Did I get that right? Bern. I like Switzerland. Well, I kind of like Switzerland. If you're into, what is it? Lederhosen and fondue and Alpenhorns and clocks, right? Lots of clocks and watches. And knives, army knives, right? That's okay. That's a stereotype. I'm from Canada, so where I am, I'm in an igloo. I take the dog sled to work. I love my maple syrup. And not many people know this, but we actually invented apple pie, as Canadian as apple pie. Don't tell any of the Americans. They think they invented it, but they're all wrong to a man. That's okay. It's all about stereotypes. Right on, eh? That's the other thing we say. We say that a lot. And a boot, right? You guys ever talk to a Canadian? We should have like an international talk to a Canadian day, and you can like try and fake the accent. It helps if you dress as a Mountie too. Corin Fun says, little fun challenge since I noticed you're fluent in French. Could you say HR topics rock in French? The problem with my French is that I stopped speaking at age 18. So anything that an 18-year-old doesn't talk about, like human resources, les ressources humaines. Now, I don't know how to say something rocks in French either. La pierre, il roche. Est-ce que tu aimes mon accent franco-manitobain? Anyway, you now have to speak Swiss to me. Yes, that's Baron. I thought it had an E on the end. It doesn't? Anyway, that's awesome. Switzerland rocks. Okay, Nikita says, as a fresher with 4-year gap in between, I have completed my graduation in 2019 and have 3 months of work experience. How to reach out to people I'm willing to learn and give my best to the work. Okay, so how to reach out to people from whom I'm willing to learn, I think is what you're saying, and give my best to the work. I've completed my graduation. Okay, well, that's a great question. That's not something I can answer in 30 seconds. I did this big demonstration last week where I showed like how to do that, like by basically going, to here. You know what? I'm just going to do this. A lot of you guys have seen this before. I apologize, but I'm just going to do it again. Just so I don't know. Pick a city. Let's pick Bern. Okay, Bern. Here we go. Bern capital. So it doesn't have an E on the end. So I was wrong. So you were right. So you actually live there and you knew this better than me. I'm shocked. Okay. Okay, let's pick the city of Bern. Let's pretend that I lived in Bern. Okay. You've got to imagine me in lederhosen with an Alpenhorn and a watch, 2 watches, one on each wrist, and my army knife, eating fondue, walking down the street in my clogs, and then this is where I was. Okay, so this is my hometown. Now, Nikita, you didn't say what industry or thing that you graduated in. Like, what's your degree in? What's the nature of the work? What industry? Okay, so I'm going to say, I don't know, what would be somebody suggest to me an industry or a profession. Nikita, if you're there, if you can answer, I will type in the industry of your choosing. Okay. Now what this does, okay, let's say I lived, okay, right, I don't know, like if we zoom into this city, okay, let's say I lived right here, okay, this elbow right there, okay, and the idea behind this is that you're going to find the organizations around you, okay, that are near to where you live that have potential to employ you. Okay, that's the whole point of this. Now, if you are doing remote work, it's more virtual. You could do work for organizations that are not in your geographic region. Okay, so like could be anywhere in the world, basically. But if you're commuting, okay, if you're going to drive from your house or take the train or take the bus or whatever, from your house to your workplace every day, okay, it has to be within a certain geographic region. There's no point in looking at organizations that are 500 miles away if you have to journey, every day back and forth from your house to there, right? So everybody's going to have their own unique situation here. Okay. Corin says that's a French Canadian accent. Yes, it's a brilliant one too. That's what everybody needs to know. Nikita says, I want to get a job. How to reach out to people as people show little or no trust on a fresher I've done in business management. Okay, business management. Well, once again, that doesn't really narrow it down. Okay. Like you could go into banking, you could go into entrepreneurship, you could go into marketing, you could go into consulting, business management, you could just go out into all these different industries. Let's pretend that you took marketing just so we can get this started. Okay. So we could start by typing in marketing. Okay. So I'm up in the search box here. I type in marketing. Now, when I do that, you see on the map, all these little dots appeared. Okay. Bam. So these are all businesses, okay, that have something to do with marketing. So B2, B2C marketing company. What's this one here right next to it? Ads and Figures, AG. AG is like a company. Switzerland cheese. Here we go. I forgot the cheese. Swiss cheese. How could we forget that? Okay, so let's take this one, whatever this is. Werbung online suitor. I'm sure I just completely bastardized that, but I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click on this dot, and what you're going to see is, here we go. It's going to give you information about this organization. So I typed in marketing. This is one of the things that popped up. It says Internet Marketing Service. Okay, so let's say I wanted to get a job in the field of marketing. I wanted to join a company that it sells its services to other companies and helps market them. Okay, so here is one of them. So you can see you've got their website down here. You've got their address. This one doesn't have a phone number. Usually they have phone numbers. Okay, let's get rid of that. We could look at another one here. What's this? Enigma. My computer is slow. I'm working on a 14-year-old PC here. Enigma. Okay, then this business, Bern. Okay, Bern. So here you go. This one has a phone number, and you could follow this to their website. Okay, so this is the very beginning of like a networking type search. Okay, so these are potential employers for you in the marketing. Now you're not just limited to doing one search. You could also type in other things. I want to work as an associate product manager, and even for a fresher position, they're asking some relevant experience. Okay, so product manager. You know what? I'm just going to type in product manager. That's a very general search, but I'm just curious to see what pops up. Oh, that went to a different city or something? What is this? What city? Okay, this is Bern. Yeah, it's still Bern. Okay. Yeah, that doesn't really produce anything. It gives you a couple of things here. What's this? Clothing store. Okay. So, whatever. If you want to be a product manager in a clothing store, maybe that's appropriate. I don't know. So here's what you do. So you've got a list of these people. Now, I did this last week. I'm going to do it again just to kick off some discussions about this. You know what? Here, let me just get this set up. Now, the idea is that once you know of these organizations, once you've detected potential employers, okay, what you can do is you then use LinkedIn as a tool to look inside those organizations down to the individuals, okay? Because when you reach out, you're going to reach out not to the organization, you're going to reach out to individuals, okay? So you need to know who's inside these organizations, who's the person in charge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here is, once again, against my better judgment, here is my LinkedIn. Okay, so up at the top here, you've got a search. So let's just take a look. What was this organization, Demarque? Now, I don't think I'm going to be connected to people in the clothing industry in Bern, Switzerland, but just to illustrate a point, can I cut this? Here we go. So copy. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do a people search. I'm going to say Demarquette, if that's how you say it, Bern. Okay, so this is a particular company, and I'm going to say people because I'm doing a people search. Okay, so here we go. So student multimedia production, current manager at Demarquette. Okay, let's look at that person. Here's a person. In the past, they were a product manager. These are all previous people. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not connected to people in Switzerland that work in the clothing industry, but if I was, okay, where is this? If I was, can I look at this person? I can't access the profile, but they're not even a third degree connection of mine. This person I can access. Okay. So here'd be the person. Now, presumably, if I lived in Bern, Switzerland, I would have built up my network a little bit, okay, so that I would be a much closer connection to these people in Switzerland that work in the clothing business, okay? So what you could do is you could see, okay, here's the person that works there. This is their title. And what you're usually going to get is you're going to get the owners, you're going to get the executives, you're going to get product managers, you're going to get supervisors, this kind of thing. They're all going to pop up. So it's like a two-step process. So step one is using this to find, who are the potential employers around you. And for each employer, you're then going to go and do a people search on LinkedIn and look into that organization. There's going to be multiple hits on each of these organizations, especially if it's in your hometown. And you're going to see all these people. Now, this tells you who they are. It shows you their background. Like, you essentially get the equivalent of their resume on their profile. And it also is the means to connect with them, to communicate with them. Okay. So these are the tools you use to do networking online. Okay. This is one way of doing networking online. And there's many ways of doing this. You can broadcast yourself. You can say, hey, I'm here. I solve this problem. If ever you're looking for someone that can solve that problem for you, let me know, because I'd love to work for you. You can ask for an informational interview where, you say, I'd love to get your expert opinion on, things that are happening in this industry. Would you have, say, half an hour of your time that you could spare me? And you suggest a date, time, and place, and I will meet you. And then now you're in the same room with one of these people. You can ask them anything. It's not about getting a job. It's about getting information. But what you're doing is, at the end of this, they know who you are. And if they're impressed by your professionalism and your passion for this business, you can reach out to them. Okay, at the end of the day, they give you a business card and you can call them up anytime you want. And you do this with executives and owners and CEOs of these little companies. I was a CEO of a small, medium company. It's really not a big deal. And it's actually their job to take unsolicited queries from the public like this. So this is a lot easier than a lot of people think if you do it right. Okay, so just to give you an idea, that's kind of the beginnings of networking. That's one thing that I recommend for introverts. You set all this up. You don't have to talk to another living person. You don't have to schmooze. You don't have to go to an industry event. You know what I mean? So, by the way, I talk about all this stuff in my course, right? My Get Hired course. That lays it all out, all the principles, beginning to end, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with templates, etc. Okay. But yeah, so investigate that. Investigate networking. It's a lot easier. And that problem that you're talking about, Nikita, the whole it's an entry-level job, but they need experience. You can get around that using this technique too. Because the way it works is that if you reach out to someone like this, you do, say, an informational interview with them, they will be so impressed, okay, and the fact that they know you, the fact that they've met you, that you guys got along, you made them feel really good. That was like a free sample of what it would be like to work with you. You asked them questions about their opinions, about different things in their industry. Where's it going? And what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? It's a very flattering experience for people. So if you do it right, they will love you. They will think you're awesome. So that usually, most of the time, they'll waive any silly kind of technical requirement that you need 3 months experience or whatever. If they're impressed with you, they're impressed with you. It's a way to get around that. Okay, so where did I leave off here? I want to get a job, how to reach out to people as people show no trust on a fresher. Yeah, you see, the thing is, if you go in with all the other young, hopeful job seekers, they will treat you like cattle, right? You're in it purely for self-interest. The only reason you're talking to them is because you want a job. It's all about you. You're there for your self-interest, right? And you're all lumped together with the unwashed masses of job seekers, and so they treat you very poorly, right? The secret is to go around that. This is something a lot of people learn a little bit later on in their careers. You know, you're told this stuff in the educational system, like, oh, this is how you get a job. Sorry, there's no other way. This is how you do it. And it's all crap, of course. There's many other ways. Most people don't get jobs like that. Even entry-level people don't get jobs like that most of the time. You know? So, yeah, they're not going to trust somebody who's just in it for self-interest. You'll say anything you need to say to get a job, right? To impress them so they give you a job. They're not stupid. They know this, right? So that's the situation you're walking into. So you don't get a lot of respect. You know, you're certainly not trusted, right? And I want to work as an associate product manager. They're asking for some relevant experience. Yeah, you can get around that. First of all, there are ways to get experience. Okay, you can volunteer, you can do other things, but this method, usually that's an empty requirement. They need some way of filtering out the 200 people that apply for every one of their jobs. So that's why they put all these restrictions. They say, well, yeah, it's an entry-level position, but you know, you need experience. That weeds out about 75% of candidates. You know, and from their point of view, that's a good thing. You got 200 applicants. I mean, how do you manage that? Are you going to read 200 resumes? No. So great thing is you say, okay, we're going to weed out people by saying you need experience. Okay. Your salary expectations have to be below this amount. And probably those two things alone will weed out, you know, from 200 applicants to 20. Now it's more manageable, right? It's not that you really need either of those things. It's just that it makes their job doable now. You got 20 applicants. Now you can start reading resumes and actually looking at individuals and seeing, you know, should I interview this person or not? Right? So my point is that none of those requirements are real. It's just to make the recruiter's life easier, makes their task doable. So you can get around those requirements because they're not real. You get around them by going and talking to the hiring manager and making a good impression. Of the 200 people, you're the only one they've met, and as a bonus, they like you. The person that you will have to report to already has met you, and they already like you. Okay, that's a huge advantage. All the other applicants are all resumes on a desk, figuratively speaking. No, I'm not on Twitch. Sorry, Eric. I'm an old guy. I'm not on Twitch. Mike says, Bill, the quiet quitting trend apparently has this new quiet hiring, which is the new workplace trend. Trends. You know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. All the trends are all temporary. They're all fluff. They're all like a flash in the pan. Nothing ever changes. They're always looking for talented people. They're always, in the sort of recruitment and selection process, you always gravitate to people that you've met, that you know, because you know that they're not, you've got a good idea that they're not a criminal, they're not a psycho, they're not, you know, some kind of fraudster. You know what I mean? Like if you're hiring strangers, which is what a lot of these publicly posted jobs are, you're canvassing like strangers. Okay. The big hurdle that all the applicants have is not really your qualifications, even though you might think that. It's not. It's the fact that they don't trust you. They don't know who you are. I've used the analogy many times before of, you know, you're moving up your stuff from one apartment to another and you need help. You need movers, okay? You want to hire a friend or someone just to help you move your stuff. Now, let's say it's a new city or something, you don't have any friends here, no one's available, and you can't afford a moving company. You just want to hire just a person for like a day. Now, what's your concern going to be? Is it going to be that they don't know how to move furniture? Or is it going to be that, like, look, I can't stand and watch over you. I can't stand over your shoulder the entire time you're working. I got my own work to do. So I'm going to have to trust you with all my things, right? And if you're a stranger, I don't know who you are. You could be a criminal. You could be a serial burglar or something, or you know what I mean? You could be a psychopath. You could be, lying right through your teeth about your entire resume and all your skills and who you are. You might not even have told me your real name. I don't know. So that's going to be your number one concern. It's about trust. So this is the big thing that people are up against when you have no personal connection to anyone in the organization, certainly not the recruiter or the hiring manager. The hiring manager is the most important person. They're the ones that, if you get the job, you report to them, right? You're going to be working with them. So they have to like you. If they don't like working with you, they're not going to hire you. The game's over. If you walk in the room and they have a conversation with you, and at the end of the conversation, they think, God, I don't want to see that person ever again. And I certainly don't want to work with them. It doesn't matter if you've got all the qualifications in the world, like the game's over, right? So that's the big thing that you have to overcome. And that's one of the reasons why this type of networking is so effective, because you get to meet the person first independently. You're not there to ask for a job. You're there just to learn more about the industry because you're passionate about the industry. And you ask the hiring manager about their opinions on a bunch of things, right? So number one, like, assuming the whole thing is genuine, makes a wonderful first impression. Wow, you're interested in the stuff and you've got the initiative to reach out and make this happen. You're also professional and, they enjoy speaking with you. So if you can achieve all of those, which is really not that hard, they walk away going, wow, that person's really good. And then if a job opportunity comes up, right, you're a shoo-in for it. Assuming you have like the basics of the requirements. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't really know about quiet hiring. I mean, like, there's all kinds of trends and there's people that make a lot of money by coming up with this stuff. So I don't know if it's real or it's just fluff, but, I mean, they're always looking for good people. Every industry, every company, regardless of what the economy is doing, even if that industry is experiencing, a bit of a recession, like you've got a boom bust cycle going in every industry. Recessions are when they all line up in a row. They're all going down at the same time, right? But even when there's not a recession on, that industry could be on a downswing. Okay. It could be going into a valley, right? We're on the valley and then there's it comes back up to a peak, right? So even at that time, they're still looking for awesome people. Okay. So nothing ever changes. Maybe some of the details of the tools you use to reach out to people or discover people, maybe that stuff changes every few years. But there's really no trends in like of any note, the last big trend in HR, I think, happened in the 70s when they started asking behavioral questions, predominantly in interviews. There's been nothing else really since. Mike says, quiet hiring is when an organization leverages current employees' capabilities to acquire new skills without recruiting new full-time staff. So what does that mean in plain English? They leverage current employees' capabilities to acquire new skills. Are you saying training? They're training employees without recruiting. So they're training employees without recruiting new full-time staff. It was ranked among the top 9 work trends. Yeah. I mean, that's all that stuff is contrived. Seems to further support your networking works theory. Well, yeah, networking has always worked. Like for the last 150 years, certainly it's been the way to get a job. Well, the general trend that started in the 1980s was getting away from training. Okay, because the problem is that you have two companies, A and B. Okay, A trains their workforce. B doesn't. Okay. So A, all things being equal, will not be able to pay quite as much salary, quite as much compensation, because some of the money they also have the cost of training their workforce. Okay. That costs money. You got to pay for people. You got to pay for resources. You got to allow workers to not be productive for, say, 1 hour a day because they're in training. Okay, so you've got to eat all of that cost and all of that, productivity dip. Okay, so they will, all things being equal, the company that trains their workforce will not be able to pay as much compensation. Okay, now, this worked back in the 70s and earlier when people didn't move around so much between jobs, right? You got to a company, you were expected to stay there for the long haul. They didn't lay off employees at the drop of a hat all the time. And they took better care. It was a more parental relationship the employer had with their workforce. They gave you a lot more benefits and pensions, things that you're going to be sticking around. So that's, you care about pensions and long-term benefits and stuff. It was a little bit of a different thing. What they found in the 80s was that, companies would much rather outsource their training because company B is thinking, okay, that's fine. I'm going to let company A train their workforce, right? All things equal, because we here at company B, we're not spending money on training. We don't have that cost, and we don't have employees sitting in class instead of being productive. So we have an efficiency gain and we have a lower cost structure. So therefore, we can afford to pay our workers more. So what we're going to do is we're going to let company A, our competitor, train the workforce, right? And then we're going to steal those employees by offering them higher compensation. So after you're trained at company A as a worker, you could say, I can now stay with company A, or I see company B is posting jobs right across the street and they're paying more money than this company that trained me. So I'll go work over there, right? So company A loses. They train their workforce, and what do they have to show for it? All the good employees leave and get a higher paying job with their competitor, right? So ever since the 1970s, 70s, 80s, that's been a trend. Companies have gone away from training. They want you to be a turnkey employee. They want you to, day one, you start and you're productive. That's one of the reasons why they're looking always, or at least they're saying, they're always looking for experience. They don't want to train you. They don't want you to get over that learning curve with them. They want you to already have gotten over the learning curve and you know how to be productive, and you just start, and day one you could start being productive. No training necessary, right? So, that's I don't know if that's really a trend. It's a long-term trend, and it's already sort of happened, so generally organizations don't have much desire to train workers, and they haven't for quite some time. Where I am in Canada, there's all kinds of government initiatives. Government will compensate companies if you offer some training to young people. We will help offset your costs, so that we encourage you to do training so that, young people can get, trained. There's apprenticeship programs and all this kind of stuff. It has to be subsidized by the government because companies would never do it if they were left to their own devices. Corin says, pharma and banking are the main industries in Switzerland. Forget about this clothing business in Bern. Switzerland is not especially a fashionable country. What are you talking about? Lederhosen looks awesome. Especially if you combine it with the really, really thick gray socks, and mountain climbing boots. Nikita says, definitely would give it a shot. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. I encourage people in doing that. So, yes. There are 19 people here. That's it? 19? Okay, I guess I talked people to death. 19 people. Get in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be happy to answer. Corin says, Here we go. Corin's. See, this is what I don't understand. Corin's question appears here in the on-screen feed, but not in my feed. Okay, so Corin asked, the same position has been reposted a few times on LinkedIn over the past few months. What could that possibly mean? Is it a ghost job? Yeah. Like, okay, LinkedIn, there's two kind of sides to LinkedIn, okay, in terms of getting hired. Recruiters use LinkedIn as a tool, okay? So they do the work that they do on LinkedIn. They post jobs, and they get everyone to connect to them. They get job seekers to connect to them. It's just as flaky and useless as connecting to recruiters and dealing with recruiters outside of LinkedIn. Okay, I mean, they post jobs that get 200 applicants or more. You can connect to the recruiter and that really gets you nothing. They ghost you. It's just, if you could avoid the whole thing, it would be good. Okay, so that's one side of LinkedIn. Like, there's the whole recruiter thing, the jobs and recruiter part. The other part of LinkedIn is the one that's actually worth doing, which is connecting to people. This is where you can go beyond recruiters. Thank God you can go beyond recruiters. You can connect to hiring managers. You can connect to executives. You can connect to people in your industry that are high up. Okay? That's where the true value of LinkedIn is. Okay? What I'd recommend for people if you're going to get on LinkedIn, I'd pretty much ignore the posted jobs. I'd ignore connecting with recruiters. Okay? That's practically useless. I would just use it to connect to hiring managers. So who's a hiring manager? I got the question, who's a hiring manager? Anyone who is a manager is a potential hiring manager. The hiring manager is the person that if you get the job, the hiring manager is your boss, right? They're the one that has generated that job vacancy. They said, look, I need another employee in my department. Okay, another subordinate. In my group, we have too much work for the amount of people. We've got to hire somebody else. Okay, so they generate the position. And then one way or another, they get a recruiter as an intermediary to help them with that. Okay, the recruiter will, as an HR employee, they are familiar, or usually are familiar with labor laws, employment standards. They know how to go and hire somebody without stepping on the law, without, if there's human rights things or anti-discrimination things or, equal opportunity things or they'll know all that stuff, right? Then they have the sort of menial task of writing the job description, posting it, publicizing it, promoting it, and then filtering the results. So people start sending them resumes. They are the first filter. Okay, they are the coordinator. They schedule job interviews. They can invite the hiring manager down for some of the job interviews. Okay, or they could just do the initial round of job interview screening themselves, right? So that's their function. The final decision as to who they hire, usually that's made by the hiring manager. The recruiter can make recommendations, but ultimately it's the hiring manager. Hiring manager decides who they're going to hire. They decide who they're going to work with. Okay? The person you really have to impress is the hiring manager. The recruiter is usually just either a low-level grunt, no offense to them, and it's an entry-level job. Okay? They don't really contribute much in terms of advice. Or they're at the high level, they're a consultant. Okay? If you go into true executive recruiting, they're a high-level consultant. So they still don't have final say as to who they hire, but they will advise. They'll give their 2 cents to the hiring manager. Okay, the hiring manager is going to hire who they're going to hire, right? That's usually how it goes down. Now, it's their responsibility. If they hire the wrong person and that person turns out to be a dud, and it's damaging to the company and it's damaging to them, and they take the responsibility. It's on them. It's on the hiring manager. Okay, because they're the captain of this ship. So that's why connecting with hiring managers is a great thing. So if you go on LinkedIn, you find all the organizations in your industry and you connect with them. Now, who was it? Someone was saying, my friend from Switzerland there. Where was that? Oh, this thing has moved since then. Never mind the clothing in Berlin. Pharma and banking are the industries. So, same thing applies, okay? Like, okay, if we're in Bern, right, you could say banking. Right now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot. Okay, there's some. Now, if I zoom in, let's say this was where I lived, right? Like I said before. Now, if I say search this area, okay, up here, that little button there. Okay, so just within this area, this is, what's the scale here? Oh, 0 to, like this far here on the map, this little space here, that's 200 meters. Okay, so we're zoomed in quite quick. Well, look at all the banks in this area. Financial institution. Okay, this is a bank. Let's click on that one. There's all these little banks, well, maybe not so little, but all these banks here in this little area. Okay, so AEK Bank. I don't know what 1826 is. Let's keep that. And then we'll go on LinkedIn, we'll do a people search, AEK Bank 1826. I don't know what 1820. I guess that's the name of the bank, 1826. So okay, so current. Now, I don't speak German or whatever some of this is written in. But okay, so here's the person. So head of sustainability and corporate and institutional clients, Dr. Remo. Okay, we'll look at them. The problem is this is in a language I don't understand, so that kind of limits it. But my point that I'm trying to illustrate here is you're coming up with high-level people at this institution, okay? So this person is the head of sustainability and corporate and institutional clients. Okay, they're a second-degree connection of mine, supposedly. So this would be somebody you would want to talk to. Okay, if you were doing informational interviews. This is taking some time to come up. I have no idea what this is, what that position is. Okay, yeah, this is all in is it German? This is all in some other language. Okay, so but these are the people you would go bam, bam, bam. These are people that you would target, you would reach out to put in a request for an informational interview. Okay, and I've done an entire live stream on how to do informational interviews like this. So go check that out if you are interested. Okay, so my point is that I'm not in Switzerland, I'm not in Bern, and I'm not in banking. But even I have some second, third degree connections with people in some of those institutions, right? So now, if you don't have a big network, you could still do this, but you might have to pay for a premium LinkedIn account, or like I've said before, they have a free month trial of the premium account. I believe they still have that. The reason I believe they still have that because I keep getting messages try the premium. I've used the premium account before years ago. It was all right. The only thing of value, at least back then, 5 years ago or more, was when you do searches, it doesn't restrict your searches. So you have an unlimited number of searches you can do, and the search results are not filtered. I have an unpaid account now. That's all I have. That's all I need. And what it does is the people results, it filters them. So it will the only people that show up in your search results are people that you are connected to as either a first, second, or third degree connection. If they're outside of a third degree connection, there's more than 3 degrees of separation between you and them, they will not show up on a people search. So that's the big restriction. You can get around that if you get the premium account, or you do the month-long free trial. Okay, now if I was doing a search in my hometown for an industry that I'm in, you can be sure you would get all kinds of much more relevant results. You get all the CEOs of all the companies, you get a lot of the executives of all the companies. So if you wanted to reach out to that company, sort of get on the inside, have people start to know who you are and have met you. And now they're at the end of a phone call. If you ever want to make contact with them, and they will take your call because they know you and they like you, that's what you would do now. And you start at the top. You don't start at the bottom. You don't start at the middle. You start at the top. Okay. These people are not unapproachable. They're just like me, a lot of them, except a lot of them might be more extrovert than me. They'll be less technical, some of them, and more extrovert. And I know that because I've met them all and I've done informational interviews with the vast majority of them. Where did I leave off here? Pharma and banking. Okay. So now I'm still dealing with comments that happened like 10 minutes ago. Definitely would give it a shot. Thank you very much. My pleasure. How to put your best foot forward and stop looking needy for the job. In the informational interview, any tips for that during networking? Well, okay, informational interviews are absolutely not about a job. Okay. I've done a whole live stream, like I said, was it 2 weeks ago? On informational interviews. You can go and watch it on this channel. Just go to my channel page, and then under live, you can see all my live streams, and just go and look at the one on, I did one on networking. The entire thing is on networking. And then I did another one on informational interviews, and the entire thing is on informational interviews. Informational interviews, you got to have the maturity to not blab all about a job. It's not about you. It's about them. You don't go down to an informational interview to say, give me a job, okay? If you did that, the informational interview would be over in 2 minutes. They'd be like, okay, well, I can see what's going on here. You're not interested in talking to me. You're just here for yourself. You just want a job. So, sorry, no dice. Right? Okay. Informational interviews will get you a job, but it's an indirect kind of thing. You get them to find out who you are, see how awesome you are, make them feel awesome talking to you, so that when it's over, they think, wow, I wish that could have gone on longer. I was really enjoying myself talking to that person, right? That's, and then you also want them to think that you're awesome, you're professional, you're passionate and knowledgeable about this industry, you have some skills, you're a great person to deal with, and they like you. That's the end result of an informational interview in the context we're talking about here. Okay, so that's useful. Now, if they have a job opening right now, they might just bring it up and say, hey, we're actually looking for somebody, right now. There might be, I don't know if you're interested, there might be some potential here. That can happen. That's a possibility. A lot of times it won't. A lot of times I recommend, you sort of go away for a couple weeks, and then you come back and you send them another message and say look, I was thinking about what you told me, and that's really interesting, and, just so you know, and then you do your broadcast. If ever you guys are looking for someone who can do this, let me know, because I'd love to work for you, and then just, that's how you promote yourself, and put yourself forward for a position. Okay. So it's kind of an indirect sort of way. Okay. But if you walk in there going, give me a job, here's my resume, it's no, it's over, Anyway, watch that live stream if you're interested in this stuff. It's very, very powerful stuff. This is how people get jobs later on in their career at a higher level. Okay. It's one of the ways. It also helps if they know of you. Yeah, so just don't look needy. Don't that's the thing. Ant Johnson says, it's been brutal in the tech industry for me, going on 5 months now, and I've had a multitude of last stage interviews and still nothing yet. But HR manager tells me that they haven't hired anyone yet. Yeah, the HR manager is going to say anything they need to say. They are famous for, lying right through their teeth, because they always want to avoid an awkward conversation. So they don't want to ever say no to anyone. They never want to say you're rejected. Sorry, we went with someone else. There are some that just I don't know if it borders on psychopathy, but they don't care. They'll just say, I'm sorry, we're not going with you. I'm sorry, we found somebody else more qualified than you. It's like, this is the level of social skill some of these people have, right? Either they lie to you and you can't get a straight answer, or, they're so cuttingly blunt that you just don't ever want to see that person again and deal with them, because that's, how they operate. I don't know which one is worse. It's this is sort of the beginning of the chip on my shoulder that I got decades ago against kind of my treatment in HR. When I was sort of in my 20s, and you go applying for jobs, and you encounter these kind of people, and it's like, and then you learn later on, once you learn some social skills yourself and you learn a bit of protocol, it's like, you don't need to interact with people like that. There are much better ways of doing it. And then later on, I met like actual high-level executive recruiters that are absolute masters of human communication, like human interaction. And, I went for some CEO jobs and stuff, and I didn't get them. And the people that I dealt with were able to say no to me, like in such a way that like I didn't mind. That's, holy crap, that's like the heavyweight championship of like communication skills. It's basically diplomacy. If you become a diplomat or an ambassador, you learn this stuff. You're always dealing with negative stuff, like between countries. Each country is kind of self-serving in large part. And so to try and interoperate with other countries, you're always dealing with awkward situations. You're dealing with conflicting interests. You want this one thing and we want this other thing. And so trying to find, some middle ground is very difficult. So these people are absolute, like generally speaking, they're absolute masters of communication. So I've worked with some of these people, and like, holy crap, I just stand in awe of them, So my thing is like, well, if it's possible to do that, why isn't this taught to a lot of the more junior people in HR that are out there interacting with job seekers and doing an absolutely terrible job of it? Like, okay, you've been out of work 5 months, and that sucks. And I'm sure there's some real, issues with that, right? But on top of it, the thing that gets to people is the rejection, the feeling that, oh, there's no hope. Oh, I don't understand how this works. And then, I'm no good. No, everybody keeps saying that, no, I'm not good enough. Right. And that leads to feelings of doom and gloom that like, oh no, I'll never be good enough. All this kind of stuff. It's like that all can be avoided. Right. Because the reality is that, you're talented, you're employable, you've had jobs before, so you know that you have value, right? You know that you can contribute, right? It's just if you could sort of, on the other side of the table, recruiters, they'd love to be able to hire like many, many different applicants, but unfortunately they can only hire one for this role. So they have to say no to a lot of people that like, like, I'm sorry, we're not going with you, but I wish we could because you're highly talented and you'd be able to contribute a lot here. Just, we don't have an opening for you at this time. If that's the kind of message you got when you were rejected, and so that you felt that and you believed that, this would be a lot easier for a lot of people. I still remember how that felt. It doesn't feel good. Ann Johnson, yeah, you're still pushing forward. Yes, definitely. But the thing is, make sure that you're not just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. There's multiple ways to get a job. There's different avenues you can go down that will result in a job. Don't just do one thing. Don't just do two things. Do several, okay? Don't just fall into the trap of just applying for posted jobs day after day after day, and that's all you do, right? There's a lot of other things in there too. And the reality of this is that there are many qualified candidates for most jobs, like especially in IT. I mean, you're not going to tell me that like, oh, nobody out there has the technical skills to do this job. It just can't be done. People just are not equipped to be able to do this job. And that's the reason why we're not hiring them. It's like, no, there's a lot of people that could do it. It's the question is they're not being selected. Right? Now, what's the criteria for selecting somebody? A big part of it is the soft skills. Is do they like you? Do they know you? You know, are you the type of person they would want to work with? It's very tough to get that across when you go to these, you know, interrogation type style job interviews. They're very artificial. They're very forced. They're very awkward. You know, and they're really not very good at seeing the value in somebody. They sit you down in this awkward situation. You're nervous. They don't really do much to alleviate that nervousness. And then they fire these like stupid questions that you know, why should we hire you? You know, tell me, like, what are your weaknesses? You know, like stuff like that. I even did a video once on, you know, what type of, if you could be any type of animal, what animal would you be? You know, stupid questions like this. They ask you all about your weaknesses and all about, you know, like, why did you leave your last job? And then based on that, they like try and decide who's going to go and who they're going to select. And usually the decision in large part is made, especially by recruiters, by people who don't know any of the technical details of the job itself. You know, so it's a really stupid way of selecting somebody. It really is. We've gone into this before on my live streams. My Studio says, hi, My Studio. Somehow my messages are not posted here. I can see this one. So I at least got that one. Make sure you're not using any extreme language or something. That might be one of the reasons why, if they are being filtered out, why that happens. Super Green Samurai says, hi, Bill. I've had 3 interviews with the same company. They added a 4th with HR. I think this could be the salary negotiation. Any advice? You're awesome. Thanks. Okay, just so you know, if they haven't given you a written job offer yet, it's not a negotiation. You can't negotiate anything until they've selected you. You have nothing to negotiate with. Okay? I've done a couple of videos on salary negotiation. Look at my videos. Like, I don't know, I've done 20 videos or something like that in 2023. Go on my channel, look at those videos. One is like how to respond to the salary question when it's on a form, like when you have to put a number. You can only put a number and a single number. You can't put a range. You can't skip the question. Watch that video. Okay, I've also done a longer video. It's like an hour long, all about salary negotiation. So check that out. That might be useful too. Okay, just remember, that's the number one thing for younger job seekers to remember. Until they've given you an offer, it's not a negotiation, because if they say, how much money do you need? And you say like a certain amount, right? If it's above some hurdle rate that you don't know what that is, you're not a mind reader, they could say, okay, thanks, but no thanks. We're going with somebody else who's cheaper, right? So it makes you want to lowball yourself, right? So you end up saying, oh, minimum wage is fine, even though that's ridiculous for the job you're applying for, right? It's stupid. It's stupid. That's what's going on. It's not a negotiation. They're not interested in trying to accommodate your pay requirements, your compensation requirements. They're not interested in any of that, right? Because they haven't decided, they haven't selected you yet. Okay. What happens is they get to the end of the selection process. They decide who they want to offer the job to. They do all their background checks, all that, and then they put together an offer letter of some kind and send that to you. Okay. Now, just so you know, okay, at that point, what has happened behind the scenes is, first of all, they've done a lot of work on you. Okay. So they've invested time doing background checks and calling references and, all this stuff. Okay. So they put quite a bit of time into you. Okay. So they're not really looking for you to back out now. If you backed out, that would be painful to them. The other thing is that once they send you an offer letter, what that usually means, not always, but usually it means that the recruiter has recommended that they go with you, okay? And the hiring manager has agreed. Now, the recruiter is supposed to be the expert on candidates, right? So if the recruiter says, I recommend that we give them an offer letter and then we offer them this much compensation, I'm guessing that they'll take it. Now, if you turn around and reject it, that is very embarrassing for the recruiter. Not only have they invested a bunch of, like man hours into you, okay? They put a lot of work, a lot of money into you, and then now you back out, so it's a loss for them. But it's embarrassing for the recruiter. They recommended you. They said, I believe they will take this offer, and then you rejected it. And that shows that they kind of made the wrong call. And that's there on display to the hiring manager. Now, sometimes this doesn't matter too much. They hire people every day and they deal with hundreds of different hiring managers, and who cares? But sometimes it's a big deal, right? So they don't want you to back out, is my point. If you back out, it causes them pain to varying degrees at this point. Okay? So that's where you have some power to actually say, no, I need more money, and they feel pressure to actually grant that. They'll say like, okay, well, can we give them more money? Usually the hiring manager will be behind that. Hiring managers want you to have more money. If a hiring manager had their way, a boss, if a manager, like a boss, if they had their way, all their subordinates would be very well paid. Because if your employees are well paid, they tend to be dedicated, committed. They tend to listen to you and do what you say. They tend to really value the job. They tend to want to be promoted because this is a very lucrative job situation. So that makes them much better employees. I don't think there's any boss on the planet, any manager that wants their employees to be paid very little, right? The only exception is maybe if the manager is somehow an owner of the company, okay? Then if it's a bad company, then maybe they might feel that way. But in all those other situations, you want your employees to be paid a lot because you want them to work well and listen to you and do what you say and show up for work. So that's the deal. Okay, so the at this point, then you have something to bargain with. Okay, so you can negotiate. You could say, well, and the way to negotiate, just in a nutshell, because I don't have a lot of time, I don't have an hour to talk about just this, but basically you give up some stuff. You say like, I don't like this, I don't like that. Oh, we only get this much vacation. Oh, we only get this many sick days. I see the hours are longer than what I did in my previous job. So, but whatever, fine. Starting date, that's going to be a bit of a, I'm going to have to quit my job last day on Tuesday and then first day of this job on a Wednesday. It's going to be kind of tight. But you know what? I'll give you all of that. Don't worry about it. Yes to all of this. So you give them some concessions. Then you can say, okay, I need this. I gave you this, and this. You're going to have to give me this. I need that number to be this. Okay, like, 5,000 more, or whatever, right? So you are willing to give them things, and if you give them several things in a row, then there's a little bit of pressure for them to say, okay, I'll see what we can do, right? And then if they say no, negotiation is all about having options. I've spoken about that a lot too. If you have no other option but to take this job, that's your only job prospect you have. It's either that or unemployment, and maybe there's financial concerns or something, and unemployment is not really an option. So it's like, you got to take this. If that's your situation, you can't really negotiate. You don't have any power to negotiate. You have to take whatever they give you. If you have other options, okay, I got an offer with this company, but I'm in the final stages with 2 other companies. that are all really good jobs too, right? It's like, then you might have other options here. So then you can afford to sort of play a little bit of hardball. When you ask for, I need this number to be changed, and they say, oh, I don't know about that. You say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll get back to you. And then you leave, and then they don't hear anything for a couple of days. Then you can afford to do stuff like that. Or even just the whole thing that you say, like, okay, you know what, I'll get back to you. I've had people stop me right there and say, okay, fine, we'll give it to you. Because as we all know, I'll get back to you means I'm never going to get back to you. All right. So anyway, it's a whole thing. If you really wanted to get into it, I've got an hour-long live. It's not a live stream. It's like just a regular video on salary negotiation. Right on, Nikita. Nikita says, my studio, where should I apply for a remote tech job? I don't know. What do you want to do? I can't answer that. I mean, I don't even know what you do. What type of tech? Are we talking customer service? What are we talking? Aunt Johnson says, I feel like I'm ultra qualified. Well, good. That's the first step. So you got some self-confidence in your skills. Once you've been employed and once you've been able to do stuff and accomplish things, it's kind of, nobody can take that away from you. So that's good. That's good. Now it's a matter of getting the trust thing down. You could be awesome. You could be like highly capable. But the problem is that people don't know you, and you walk in there with all the other cattle, all the other job seekers that they don't know. You could be a criminal. You could be a psychopath. You could be scamming them. You could be a spy. It could be industrial espionage. That does happen. Jim says, how would you recommend finding executive management jobs for someone in IT or engineering experience and a fresh MBA? Okay. I have some of that myself. I have an MBA, I have an engineering degree, and I ran an IT company, so I can relate to that. Okay, there's two ways that I would recommend, like without knowing any real details. Number one is kind of the method I talked about already, which was basically networking and informational interviews. I would do that. I would get informational interviews with CEOs in your industry. So in IT, the type of IT that you're doing. Okay, I don't know if you're on the systems admin data center side or you're on the development coding side, but whatever it is, I would do as many informational interviews as you possibly can, all with the CEOs. If you can't, for whatever reason, you can't reach one of the CEOs, then I would look lower to like the C-level people. It depends what you're in. Presumably it would be with the COO or CIO, but it depends kind of on the details. And the other thing I would do is if you haven't done this already, I would make sure that you have a presence in that industry publicly. Okay. So at the very least, you start with doing posts in groups and things, possibly LinkedIn groups, possibly local community type stuff. Within that industry, go to industry trade shows, have a presence there. I don't know if you're out of work right now. It helps if before you're out of work, you pushed for them using you as some kind of ambassador. So when they send their representative to industry events and things, you're someone that is sent out. Okay, so you're doing the networking on behalf of the company. Okay, obviously, I would also reach out to all my personal contacts, people that you had work relationships. If you were interfacing with people at other organizations, other companies, suppliers, partners, vendors, it could be government, it could be, marketing sort of contacts, all of that. I would make sure that you reach out to them. I would also make sure that you got informational interviews with the CEOs of all those organizations. You've had dealings with them before, so that's great. If you have a great informational interview with somebody at the top, plus you've had dealings with them, so people lower down know of you, they've worked with you. That's pretty powerful. Okay, I'd make sure you're tapping that also. Yeah, like that's probably a good start. I mean, that should give you more than enough work to do and more than enough avenues to go down. Okay, I would push for, if you can do like 3 to 5 informational interviews with CEOs a week. You need to do like that amount. Okay, in your city or geographic region. Okay, that's how I would do that. And yeah, I mean, that would be what I'd recommend. I mean, it also depends. Like if you're in IT, I'm making the assumption that you're not like an extroverted networker type. Okay. If that's not true, if you've had opportunity to sort of go outside of what I described, if you have a presence in your city or whatever, like chambers of commerce and other economic development stuff. I mean, I would hit up those also. I would have a presence there, and I would connect with people through those channels, so that you're number one, you can discover them. Number two, you can make a good impression because you are coming through that channel. So, some people, they work in sort of the marketing side of the IT company, and they have all that. They have all these connections. So obviously I would hit that up too. Hopefully that makes sense. And Jim has sent me a super sticker. Thank you, Jim. It's been a long time since I got one of those. That's awesome. And feel free to ask more questions if there's anything else I can help you with. Mike Studio says, yeah, remote software developer job. Okay, so my studio, where should I apply for a remote tech job? Well, if it's a remote job, you can apply everywhere, any IT company. I mean, what do you want to hear? Like you're saying, where should I apply? I mean, I would apply for jobs. You could look online or in the posted job market, or you could look in the hidden job market with networking. I recommend networking in the hidden job market. That's where the best jobs are. And that's also the way you get around a lot of standard roadblocks, like it's an entry-level job, but they need experience, or you're changing careers and you don't have any previous experience in the role. That's another one. Or you've got a large work gap, and that looks suspicious, so nobody will touch you because they find it to be risky. So if you're up against any of those, networking is the tiebreaker. It'll push right through those roadblocks. Okay, you have some great informational interviews with somebody. None of the 3 roadblocks I mentioned will matter after that point. Okay, if they meet you and they like you. Okay, at the very least, learn to broadcast yourself on networking. That's kind of dangerous if you're like an amateur. You don't know what you're doing. You're just going to blast out a sort of silly message with a bunch of grammatical errors to everyone, even though it's inapplicable to them. You're just going to spam them with you got to learn how to do it right. You got to learn how to do it properly, or else it's completely ineffective. And in fact, it's worse than useless. People now start not liking you, right? Because you're a spammer. So you've got to do it to people to which it's applicable. You've got to have a proper message that's on point and it's professional. Okay. And things like that. So I learned that stuff. It's not something I can explain in like a minute. You have to learn these principles. Okay. Now, just because it always comes up, just shameless plug, if you are looking to learn that and you're lost, I have a course that describes all of that. Okay. Beginning to end, all the principles, and then what you do step by step with templates. So if that's what you're looking for, check out that course. There's a link in the description. It's called my Get Hired course. But one way or another, learn it. I mean, there's stuff you can learn with free resources, but a lot of young people, they do it and they do it in such a bad way. They just, their first mistake is that you either don't have a note attached when you communicate with people on LinkedIn. Another mistake is that you're communicating with people that you're not connected to. These people haven't shown any interest in you whatsoever. What makes you think they're going to give you a job? If they can't even be bothered to connect with you, they're probably not going to just hand you a job. Okay. So it's basically the principle of the marketing funnel. Like, you go down the funnel, people show a little bit of an interest. They can at least click, that's kind of the first step. And then, that might be promising. Maybe they'll respond to a message. That's the next step. And if they respond to a message, then maybe they'll agree to consider you for a job, or maybe they will be open to meeting with you for an informational interview, right? Okay, like, that's how these things work. You have to have a basic understanding of that, or you're just going to be like asking strangers, "Can you give me a job?" And the answer will always be no. Who the hell are you, right? So there's kind of a method. There's some principles at play here of how you do this stuff. So it's okay. There's a lot to learn, but it's really not hard. It's not rocket science. Go down that learning journey. The more of this stuff you learn, the further you'll go, the more doors it'll be able to open up for you. Okay? Don't listen to, my pet peeve, as you guys know probably, is, people from the educational system that have never been out in the real world in their lives, but yet they're telling you all about, here's how you apply for jobs. Here's what employers look for. How the hell would they know? They don't. And, the job that they got in the educational system, great. Okay, so they make decisions based on a certain culture in that industry, but it is very far removed from, say, the IT industry, in the private sector, right? So you know what I mean? Now, this is why informational interviews work, because you're sitting down and you're talking to people. Like, what better way to learn how to get a job in the IT industry than to sit down with an IT manager who's running a department of developers? Let's say you're a developer, you're looking for a job. What better way to get the inside scoop on how they think and what they look for and what they like than being able to sit down with an IT manager who, they don't think you have any vested interest or ulterior motive. They're just being honest with you. You're able to fire some questions at them and they answer you. That's the way to learn this stuff. Ant Johnson, I've literally put in 3 hours a day on my coding skills and learning new skills, and I know these other potential candidates aren't putting that work in like me. Yeah, well, obviously you have some value, Ant Johnson. Now, what you got to make sure is all the social skills are to match, because it's stupid to have all this talent and ability, but no one will give you a chance because you don't know how to, say, talk to somebody, right? Or you don't know how to communicate with somebody remotely. You don't know how to reach out, right? What a stupid reason to not get a killer, coding job, right? Or, you maybe your interviewing skills aren't quite top notch. Your stuff from a technical point of view, but the problem, what maybe possibly no one is saying, is that, you're maybe a little bit off-putting because you're not very warm and friendly, and, you don't put people at ease. It just feels like a very high pressure, intense kind of experience talking to you. I don't know. I'm just saying, make sure your interview skills are not the weak link in the chain, right? Because what a stupid reason to not get a great coding job. You didn't get it because of some ancillary thing, So you got to make sure those other things are in place too. Okay, and the other thing I found with IT, I've been out of the IT business for many years, but what I found was that a lot of people, I don't know if this is everyone, but a lot of people, they regard IT as like a commodity. They think like one developer, like a developer is a developer is a developer. One is good as the next. They're all fungible. They're all the same. Now, we all know that's not true. Some people are really talented and some people aren't, but the people that decide these things, or some of the people that decide these things, they have this idea that, they're all the same. It's like an accountant. One accountant is as good as the next accountant. There's no difference. You just need an accountant. It doesn't really matter who you get. So you might as well get the one that we like the best, right? This is how a lot of people thought in IT. That's what I noticed. That's how they regarded it. And this is evidenced by like how they charge for projects and things. It's all like man hours. And this, it's so stupid. Bad people take a long time to do something. And then they make a lot of mistakes and bugs, and you have to take a lot of time to fix those, so they get paid more. It's stupid. It's the exact opposite of what it should be. So we all know that that's not true. There are some highly talented, highly efficient people. But sometimes the problem with why those people don't get hired is because their interviewing skills and their communication skills and their social skills hold them back. So you've got to get your social skills and everything and interviewing skills up to a certain level so it's not standing in the way, blocking you from great opportunities. I've got to sign off in a few minutes, but I'm going to get to these questions. Jim says, thank you for the advice. I'm still employed and I'm a software engineer right now, but I'm excited to get into management. I've not done much networking, but with your advice, I will do more. Okay. Now, if you're in a larger organization, okay, you want to get into management, you want to get promoted. Unfortunately, a big part of that is politics, okay? People tend to promote and hire people that are like them. People tend to promote and hire people that agree with them. People tend to hire and promote people that will sort of support them, even when they're wrong. So learn about that. If that's your ambition. I'm not saying you have to give up your soul, but just be tuned into it, tuned into that. Okay. You would think, if you're a technical person, you would think it's all about technical ability because it should be all about technical ability. Unfortunately, it isn't. Technical ability is like 10% of what it's about. Okay. It's the 90% that it's about is other things, is social skills, diplomatic skills, collaboration skills, politics. Okay. Now, once again, look, I'm not out to specifically plug my course, but because this just came up, I just want to say this. Okay. In this course, the $100 MBA. Okay. That is a reflection of a real MBA. I recommend a book list. You order the books, usually cheap off Amazon for like $5 each. You read the books to the depth you want, at the pace you want. And I have a couple of videos for each book. I guide you through it. I introduce the topic. Now, there's one topic in business. Jim, I believe you said you had an MBA, so you would know this. But there's one topic in business for people who don't know called organizational theory or organizational behavior. And it's all about how people behave in an organization. If you've ever looked at a company and you see people doing things that are just stupid, they don't make sense, but yet they are done like that and it never seems to change. This explains that behavior. Okay. So you would know, difference between power and authority. And, sometimes you see an employee who actually has more power than the boss. They have power over the boss. Maybe they're the only employee that knows how to use that particular machine or that tool or that, whatever it is. And because nobody else knows how to use it, they have power. They can say, no, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I can't come in tomorrow. I'm coming in on Thursday. And the boss goes, okay. I'm not prepared to fire you. And I don't want you to leave because I know you can get a better job across the street, because you're highly skilled. And we can't do without you. We need you to do this. So if that's what you want to do it, I guess that's what I have no other choice. So, there's a difference between, so that's an example of something you might see that doesn't make any sense. How can this employee be telling the boss what they need to go do, right? That doesn't make sense. The boss has authority over them, right? But yeah, that's not what we observe. So that is a very, very interesting topic. So you learn about that. And then you learn a little bit about, for example, if you want to get promoted or you want someone to like you, what kind of things are involved in that? And a lot of times it's very unintuitive. Okay, last couple of questions here. I'm sorry, I can't say your name. You were here last time, I think, weren't you? Premslav says, in your opinion, how important is humility when applying for jobs? Not very important. Because you see, when you are trying to get a job, you're basically trying to make a sale. It's a sales pitch, right? Now, how important is humility when you're trying to sell something? Well, I don't want to brag. I wasn't going to mention it, but yes, we are the most popular product in this space on the planet. Yeah, it's like if you don't mention stuff like that, does that do you any good? To someone who is unfamiliar with the product? Of course not. You have to be able to give your value proposition, right? This is why you should hire me. I have this, I have this, I have this. I also have skills in this area. I also have experience using this. I have this educational qualification, and this allows me to do this for you, and I can do that for you, and I can do this for you, and have it take less time than the average person because I've learned all kinds of shortcuts in the last 10 years of doing this role, right? And also, I'm great to work with. I'm giving you a free sample right now. Don't we get along really well? Isn't this an enjoyable encounter? This is what it's like working with me, right? It's great. You got an issue? Let me see if I can help you out, right? So you've got to be able to demonstrate your value, okay? It's a sales pitch. You are selling yourself as an employee, okay? Now, obviously, you don't want to walk in there and be a completely arrogant prick. But, being humble and not bragging because you don't want to, you don't want to, act all uppity or something. That depending on how it's done, that can probably hurt you. You want to make sure it's very clear what you're offering here, and how enthusiastic you are to work there and how it's going to be a wonderful experience for everybody, right? So it's a sales pitch like any other, okay? And people who come from non-sales backgrounds, like operations, like engineering, okay, like coding, this is like, yes, you are in living hell because that's what this is. But the good news is that it's really not rocket science. This stuff is not hard. If you can do engineering or accounting, or you can do like you're a systems admin and let me date myself here. All kinds of programming languages, C++, C#, Python, like all the, like you're a whiz at like all this stuff. This is a walk in the park compared to learning that. Okay, this is easy. But the reason why a lot of, those technical types don't do well at this is because, first of all, they devalue it. They think, oh, this is not something that is worth spending my time on and worth focusing on. That's the reason why they're not great at it a lot of times. There are other reasons too, but that's the big one. You first have to realize this is important. You need to know this, and you should put in a bit of time to learn some of the principles. Okay? Why not get an amazing technical job because you couldn't get this properly? It's such a waste. So that's what I would say. Okay, last question here. I hope to seek management within my company first. They paid for my MBA, but in case there's no luck, I will pursue other companies. Yes, presumably there's some opportunities. Why? I don't want to say why would they train you then, because no, there's intrinsic advantages in you having an MBA. Like you're better at certain things. You're better at your job. You're better at interacting with people. You're better at planning work and planning projects. You know what's important and what's not important. You have an advantage over people that don't have that knowledge. So there is an advantage, but presumably, there'd be opportunities for people that need those skills as the centerpiece of what they do as their job, or else why would they train people on it? Just seems wasteful if you're not going to use it. Anyway, thank you for everybody who's here. There's 18 people here. You guys are awesome. This is a new thing for me, doing this on the weekend. It's kind of a one-time only thing. Make sure you are subscribed to my other, where's my finger here? My other YouTube channel. I can't point to that. Here we go. There we go. Other YouTube channel. The Company's Expert too, because that's where I'm going to be doing a lot more of these live streams. I'm going to sort of stop doing them. At least that's my plan. Stop doing them on my main channel and do them instead on my second channel. Okay, so that's how you can get a hold of me and ask questions and things going forward. I will be back tomorrow with a couple of live streams, and then after tomorrow, they're going to be on my second channel. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. I wish you all the luck in the world. This is a skill like any other. Always remember, you are employable. You're awesome. You have a lot of value. I will see you soon. Take care.